Welcome to Falcons Ledge. I'm Ostringer, and today we get the wonderful opportunity to review a brand new stick from Winwing. Full disclosure, Winwing sent me this stick free of charge for a closed beta test and feedback. This stick is positioned specifically in the market to compete with such sticks as the VKB NXT Evo, and when combined with the second stick with Omni adapter, it is competitively priced with the X56 from Logitech. With this positioning in mind, let's explore the Winwing Ursa Miner. The Winwing Ursa Miner is made of ABS plastic. It has a smooth finish on the grip and the base. The base buttons are textured and very clicky through the use of tact switches. The throttle axis has a very long throw, which is a great feature if you're looking to use one stick or if you're using it for a function like the mining laser in StarCitizen, where the accuracy and quick ability to change the position is very helpful. The lighting on the base looks really good. It's customizable, it's classy, and it illuminates the Ursa Miner logo in a neat way. It's not really over the top, but it looks nice. Moving on to the grip. This grip is based on a Russian tank grip pictured here. I'm sure that you can already see the resemblance to the VKB Gladiator NXT. Well, that's because they're both inspired by the same grip. In the case of the Ursa Miner, Winwing chose to take additional inspiration from sticks like the SU35 stick in its button arrangement. You also might notice that other sticks like the Virpil T50, the VKB MCG are also inspired by the same grip. The Ursa grip provides a bit more room in the hand grip portion than the NXT Evo and does not have the same sharp edges that I didn't like in the NXT. The trigger sounds a bit more tinny than its competitor, but the trigger does have great tactile feedback. In typical Winwing fashion, they've made the index finger button found in the Gladiator NXT into a 5-way hat, providing additional options for input. All the axes feel very similar to the Gladiator NXT Evo, and there's a very good reason for that, and we'll get to that right now. First things first, we're going to remove the trapdoor, a feature that I'm a big fan of, and as you can see, we have 2 springs that are replaceable, though it should be noted that only one set of springs was sent in the test unit. Hopefully additional springs are available, and hopefully they're included in the production version. In addition, there's a blockout plate option here for locking out the X-axis if you should choose to do so for using it as throttle or collective. In my case, I just leave them out. There are 2 clutches on the Y-axis for this purpose. The clutches are not as strong as the Gladiator NXT, and so it doesn't work well when using it as a collective angled at a 45-degree angle. This is due to the fact that the clutch plates flex more than the Gladiator NXT's plates do. In order to service it any further, the bottom plate needs to be removed. You have to remove the rubber feet and a number of screws. Below that you can see the PCB for the base buttons. After removing this, we'll now make an important comparison. On the left, we have the Ursa Miner, and on the right, we have the Gladiator NXT Evo. As you can see, the gimbal is basically a direct copy. It's upside down, but it is a direct copy. In fact, in this example, I have a Gladiator NXT swapped in so that I can use it as a collective. That said, this type of gimbal, which I call pincer gimbals, because of how the resistance is provided, have been in use for a very long time. CH Products gimbals were pincers. The Thrustmaster FLC-S was a pincer. They're slightly different designs, but it's kind of an iteration. And these designs are decades old. It should be noted that in copying the NXT gimbal, this stick also inherits one of the downsides of using a pincer-style gimbal, in that it has a hard center in each one of the axes, which can possibly be a little bit of a hindrance in certain flight regimes like flying helos. As you cross the center line of each axis, you'll feel a little bump. This is something that you can definitely get used to, and at that point it won't affect you anymore, but it still should be noted. Moving on from the gimbal, we'll look at the construction of the grip. Though it splits similarly to the GNX, the internals are very different. Speaking of the internals, they're very well organized, and when compared to other sticks in this price bracket, not called the Gladiator, the difference in quality is pretty significant. When you compare the X52, the X56, the T16K, you can quite plainly see that this is on another level in quality. The SimApp Pro software that Winwing utilizes is a very intuitive tool, which allows you to change things on your Ursa miner, as well as customize the vibration mechanisms and lighting. Of the top manufacturers, being Virpil, Winwing, and VKB, and also Thrustmaster, in my opinion, the Winwing software is the easiest to use and best looking. So let's quickly go over the pros and cons. We'll start with the pros. Number one has definitely got to be the value. The Ursa miner is an extremely good value at $115 USD and available free shipping in the US. We're looking at the best bang for your buck in low to mid-range devices. Number two is going to be the customizability. This gimbal shares the same customizability features that you'll find in the Gladiator NXT Evo from VKB, with the addition of a very convenient trap door that you can use to access the springs and clutch adjustments. Number three will be a good button layout. The face buttons are very well laid out, particularly the mini stick and the pickle button, the center two hats. You can see here in my patented resting thumb test that my thumb ends up in the very center of the main controls. There are two buttons that are far out to the side, which can be a little bit difficult to reach, but you can always use those for lesser used functionality. In addition, the addition of that 5-way switch for your index finger is nice, though sometimes it's hard to get 100% use out of it. Let's move on to the cons. Number one, the gimbal materials are slightly less robust than VKB's, something that only became really apparent to me when I rotated it to a 45-degree angle to test it as a collective. In most cases, the clamping forces will be sufficient for everyday use and damping. But for those who prefer heavily dampened sticks, or if you want to use it as a horizontal collective, this could be a limiting factor. Number two, the hat switches on the NXT use tact switch clusters, whereas the hat switches on the Ursa miner use 5-way nav switches. I found that the nav switches to be a little bit more squishy feeling, and the hats wobble around a little bit in the center. This doesn't really affect the use of them. In fact, they are also gated, which makes them kind of nice to use, and they give a good tactile feedback, but the feeling on center and the feeling of the hat itself is a little bit better when you use tact switches. Number three is serviceability. Though the customizability is great on this stick, with its quick open access hatch or trapdoor, if you need to do more service to it, the device requires that you pull off the rubber pads shown here, and they don't go back on. These aren't generic pads either, they're custom made for this application, so if you use this as a desk mount and you end up having to service it, this could be a little bit of a problem. So, should you buy the Ursa miner? Well, if you're in the market for a budget flight stick, and you're considering such devices as the Logitech X52, X56, or Thrustmaster T16K, or others that are similarly priced, then absolutely you should. Especially if you're in the United States where Winwing is offering free shipping. There are also other places that do that as well. There is really no reason to buy the T16K, the X52, or X56 because for similar money, you can have many more buttons, more functionality, better ergonomics, better sensors, not to mention, it just looks better. And you're also getting into an ecosystem that isn't dead, looking at you, Logitech. So taking all these things into consideration, the Winwing Ursa miner looks to be the new go-to stick for bang for your buck scenarios. We did make 3,000 subs recently, and I want to thank everyone for your interaction and viewership of the channel. I will be doing a video for a giveaway of the F4E for DCS to a lucky commenter. I'm sure that you've noticed I haven't been as active lately, and that's because I've been balancing full-time work, full-time school, and family at the same time. This has been hard to find time for my reviews, but when I do get time to fly, I am collecting data, noting my thoughts, and I've also been getting some good footage. I have a bunch of stuff ready to write reviews on, a bunch of things that I've already completed my testing phase on, so I'll start taking chunks out of these very soon. This will also be my last review in this format. I'll be going to a new format where I'm going to be splitting the reviews up into smaller videos so that they can be used in things like shorts, or so that you can get just one specific piece of the review that you want, and then I'll compile them into a full review at the end of the review cycle. For this new format, I'll be starting with the Virpil T50 CM3. That's the next stick that's going to get reviewed. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. It is totally free, it won't cost you anything, and it really does help us reviewers out. Please comment, as I love to interact with you all, and most of all, have fun, fly safe, and have a great day.